So your staffer did not put his contact information.
No,
but how did it end up in your
that's
phone?
what we're trying to. That's what we're trying to figure out.
Okay, but that's a pretty big problem.
That is what. That's what we've got the best technical minds, right?
That's disturbing.
And that's where I'm sure everybody out there has had a contact where it was said one person and then a different phone number.
But you've never talked to him before, so how's the number on your phone? I mean, I'm not an expert in any of this, but it's just curious. How's the number on your phone?
Well, if you have somebody else's contact and then then somehow it gets
someone
sucked
sent
in,
you that
it gets
contact.
Sucked in.
Was there someone else supposed to be on the chat that wasn't on the chat that you thought was on the chat?
So the person that I thought was on there was never on there. It was this
Who
guy.
was that? What person?
Well, I'm not. Look, okay. Laura, I take responsibility. I built the group.
Hi everybody, welcome back to our channel. So we called it. We stated a few weeks ago, a couple other videos, that the left was waiting for something to go wrong with the Trump administration. And then once they do, they're gonna sink their teeth into it and they're not gonna let it go. Okay, the signal situation. So this is all happened last week. It was a pretty big mistake. However, they're going to blow this out of proportion. I really can't blame them, though. I mean, they got something. I mean, I feel like the left has nothing on the Trump campaign, like on the Trump administration. And so once they got something, they just kind of went with it. Yeah, this is a pretty big mistake. I don't think, though, that it's to the level that they're making it, but I understand why they're doing that, I, too, am interested in knowing how Jeffrey Goldberg got into that chat. I don't know how that can happen. I feel like you should have some precautions before you start a discussion at all. I don't care what it's about. But anyways, the only out of proportion. Pete just said something about that.
As I said to this group a couple of times on this trip now, as we move to the Indo-Pacific to do our job, which is what we're here to do, nobody's texting war plans. Well, I noticed this morning, out came something that doesn't look like war plans. And as a matter of fact, they even changed the title to attack plans because they know it's not war plans. There's no units, no locations, no routes, no flight paths, no sources, no methods, no classified information. You know who sees war plans? I see them every single day. I looked at them this morning. I looked at attack plans this morning. You know who does attack plans and war plans? Men like that admiral right there, Paparo, for the Indo-Pacific, or Eric Kurilla, our general in CENTCOM. They do attack plans and war plans. And thank God we have those leaders who do it and do it well, and our enemies know it. My job, as it said atop of that, everybody's seen it now, team update is to provide updates in real time. General updates in real time, keep everybody informed. That's what I did.
It was Mike Waltz's. Yeah. It's his fault. Yeah. I mean, I would just say it would be his fault. He did talk to Laura Ingraham about it, so I'll play a little bit of that so you guys can hear what he said.
The president expressed complete confidence in you today and his entire cabinet. But how did a Trump-hating editor of The Atlantic end up on your Signal chat?
Laura, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but of all the people out there, somehow this guy who has lied about the president, who has lied to Gold Star families, lied to their attorneys, and gone to Russia hoax, gone to just all kinds of links to lie and smear the president of the United States. And he's the one that somehow gets on somebody's contact and then gets sucked into this group.
Is someone in your intel? Is someone in your intel team trying to cause trouble here? Because that's the scuttlebutt out there.
Look,
that
we have people. No, look, this is a great group. The president has a great team. This is not first term.
No, your team. I'm not talking about the other principals.
No. These were principals and a couple of staff that were coordinating, as you saw, having a policy discussion as we went forward, and then just in the days before what was an incredible strike. Not only did we take out people that the Biden team never could, that we took out headquarters, missile caches, and actually one of the leaders of the Houthi organization. We've since taken out several since. And That's what they don't want to talk about. They don't want to talk about the success here. They don't want to talk about the hostages getting released. They don't want to talk about the Black Sea ceasefire that we just put in place today as the president ends the largest land war in Europe, or the border, or the fact that Panama just kicked China out of the canal, and success after success after success. So they want to focus on this. It's embarrassing, yes. We're going to get to the bottom of it. I just talked to Elon on the way here. We've got the best technical minds looking at how this happened. But I can tell you for 100%, I don't know this guy. I know him by his horrible reputation, and he really is the bottom scum of journalists. And I know him in the sense that he hates the president, but I don't text him. He wasn't on my phone, and we're going to figure out how this happened.
So you don't know what staffer is responsible for this right now?
Well, look, a staffer wasn't responsible, and look, I take full responsibility. I built the group. My job is to make sure everything's coordinated.
But how did the number? I mean, I don't mean to be pedantic here, but how did the number?
Have you ever had somebody's contact that shows their name, and then you have somebody else's number there?
I never make those mistakes.
Right? You got somebody else's number on someone else's contact. So of course I didn't see this loser in the group. It looked like someone else. Now whether he did it deliberately or it happened in some other technical mean is something we're trying to figure out.
So your staffer did not put his contact information.
No,
but how did it end up in your phone?
That's what we're trying to figure out.
Okay, but that's a pretty big problem.
That's what we've got the best technical minds, right?
That's disturbing.
And that's where, I mean, I'm sure everybody out there has had a contact where it was said one person and then a different phone number.
But you've never talked to him before, so how's the number on your phone? I mean, I'm not an expert in any of this, but it's just curious. How's the number on your phone?
Well, if you have somebody else's contact and then somehow it gets
someone
sucked
sent
in,
you that
it gets
contact.
Sucked in.
Was there someone else supposed to be on the chat that wasn't on the chat that you thought was on the chat? So
the person that I thought was on there was never on there. It was this guy.
Who was that? What person?
Well, I'm not. Look, okay. Laura, I take responsibility. I built the group.
Okay.
So. But look, that's the part that we have to figure out. And that's the part that embarrassing, yes. But Pete and I are veterans. We know these operations. He has been an excellent Secretary of Defense. And this was an operation that, I mean, it amazes me. I guess the Democrats were fine to leave all the sea lanes shut down. We're fine to have destroyers fired on dozens of times by this terrorist group, and fine to have Iran keep supplying them missiles. That was okay. The president takes decisive action. And now we're seeing some real success in taking down their air defenses, opening the sea lanes, taking out their leadership. We don't want to talk about that.
So my only criticism of the way he answered that's my thing, is that when something happens like this and it is clearly a bad mistake, right? And I do think it's a mistake. I don't think anyone in the Trump administration maliciously did this, although it could happen. It could be. They could have a mole, something like that. But I don't think it's what happened. I think this is literally just a mistake. But when someone asks you this question, you really shouldn't start off with he's a scumbag, he's the name calling and all of that. What you should do is just take full responsibility first. It's a mistake. We're trying to figure out what happened there. We're investigating the situation, but I take full responsibility for the situation. You don't start off. Yeah. I mean, this is my opinion only. I just don't think that it's a good look to start off that way. I think it makes you look guilty, but I for some reason I don't feel like he is guilty. You know what I mean? I think that and not just him, like this, all of them really just didn't. I feel like when you have a conversation like that on text, talking about such things, that there should be okay, before we can start this conversation, who all's in this chat? Roll call. And then exit out if you don't need to be in this chat, right? And so I think that should have been that would solved it. Mm-hmm. It would never be a thing.
But I think he's trying to say that it was that guy maliciously got on there. He's trying to say that it was my fault, but still they could have.
Yeah.
Why was he on here?
Why was he on there?
Why was this type of journalist even actively a part of this?
Right.
And then the whole thing about why they're exploiting this. Well, I mean, when Hillary's emails were out, we exploited it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's true. The Democrats are not going to say good job on the eggs prices, and especially since they're struggling right now. They're going to take every opportunity they can when we actually do make a mistake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and that's why I say, like, with Jeffrey Goldberg, he's the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic. The paper itself is not, or the magazine itself is not big time magazine. So put yourself in his shoes. Okay, I know he's slimy and all that. I understand all that. But if you're a journalist and you're an investigative reporter or something like that, and you get hold of this type of information, you're going to release it. Now, he started off by saying, actually, he wrote this, that he got privy of war plans, and Pete and the other parts of the administration are saying, no, that was not war plans. And so now, today, this is why we like to let things simmer a little bit before we start talking about stuff, because today they are now walking back the term war plans. Now they're saying it was plans of an attack, because they know that by saying it's not true. It was more of just
it wasn't classified.
Yeah, it was just a briefing. It was just a briefing on, okay, this is what we're going to be doing. There were no coordinates. There were no, where is this going to happen? None of that. That wasn't there. That being said, to me, I still think that is a very concerning mistake. You know what I'm saying? I think that as a Republican person and a Trump supporter, I like his administration. I think that we have the best defense. He put together a very good defense team. Military defense team. So I don't have a problem with them, but I do think that this has to be investigated thoroughly, because you have to figure out how this can happen and make sure that this cannot happen again.
Yeah, Trump is backing them, so it doesn't look like anyone's going to lose their job for it.
Yeah. So
he's looking into it, but I think that their point is they're just going to try to downplay it.
Oh yeah.
Because if they don't, they're going to make this into a bigger deal, like war.
Yeah.
What do they call it? War plans.
War plans.
You know what I mean? Try to make it into something like that when they know it clearly wasn't. But,
right.
Again, the Democrats don't really have much.
And they've got something. And so I know that people are like, oh, you know what, Trump, he needs to be fired. Pete needs to be fired. Everybody needs to be fired all of a sudden, right? And so the reason why this can't go on for too long with the left is because if they keep bringing up people need to resign and someone needs to be held accountable, they keep using these words and these terms, what's going to happen is what's happening now is that the right is now saying to them, right, but what happened to accountability when 13, military soldiers died in Afghanistan for this botched exit from Afghanistan? Well, who was held accountable for that? No, Lloyd Austin was the defense secretary at that time, and no accountability was happening there.
For Hunter Biden, who gets accountability for Hillary Clinton?
Yeah,
people.
We can play this game.
Yeah, I mean, if nobody's getting fired or prosecuted for those things, then what's
the so now you have a standard. See, this is the thing is that now they want a standard. Okay, so now we have that. So I'm sorry, but what happened before? So the more they keep this in the news, the more they keep talking, the left keeps talking about this, it's just going to keep, the right is just going to keep exposing. You guys did, actually what they did resulted in deaths. Because of stuff they did, right? Hillary's emails, the server and all that that wasn't even an accident. She purposefully did that. That wasn't even an accident. She purposely did that. So I think that these things, they do have to be investigated, but I really don't feel like anybody should be, terminated for this situation. Because they're trying to say it's incompetent. See, the way I view the word incompetent is your body of work, right? So if this happens again, for instance, or if they do something that I would consider to be incompetent, you can only base that off of a series of things going wrong, and then that makes you an incompetent worker. Yeah. It can't just be you make a mistake and then all of a sudden your entire history of working now is incompetent. That makes no sense to me.
Trump made a point. He said that even the most sophisticated of technology can still be compromised.
Now, let's hear what Trump had to say, because I do have a video here of him talking about that. I think it's what you're talking about.
What's your response to Republican lawmakers who have said today that your administration should take more accountability and not downplay what's happened with Signal that we've seen in these messages today?
Well, I don't know about downplaying. The press upplays it. I think it's all a witch hunt, that's all. I think it's a witch hunt. I wasn't involved with it. I wasn't there. But I can tell you the result is unbelievable, because the Houthis are looking to do something. They want to know, how do we stop? Can we have peace? The Houthis want peace. because they're getting the hell knocked out of them. It's been very, very strong.
Senate Republicans have asked, said that they have formally asked the administration for an Inspector General report on the signal issue. Will you agree to that?
It doesn't bother me. I don't know. I want to find if there's any mistake or if a signal doesn't work. It could be that signal's not very good. It's a company. Maybe it's not very good. I think we'd rather know about it now. There was no harm done because the attack was unbelievably successful that night, and it has been unbelievably successful every single night for the last 4 or 5 nights. So
he's responsible, but he's also overseeing the investigation to find out what went wrong. Maybe
who's responsible?
But Waltz says that he's responsible.
Well, yeah, Mike Waltz, I guess he said he claimed responsibility, I would imagine. Had nothing to do with anyone else. It was Mike, I guess. I don't know. I was told it was Mike. But again, the attacks were unbelievably successful, and that's ultimately what you should be talking about, I think. Mike did. He took responsibility for it.
He is right. That's ultimately what the people should be talking about, is the success of the mission. Like, the mission worked, and I think that 2 things can be true here. You can do an investigation to make sure this doesn't happen, and also we can praise the success of the actual mission. I mean, that was important, right?
They've been really hard, for years now, been hard on Trump, and the mainstream media, the left-wing mainstream media, has been really hard on Trump, and they're again, they're just going to wait for small things to happen and blow it up. I mean, if you're a party that can't even find a leader, then you have to attack the other opposition's leader.
You have to sink your teeth into stuff that happens.
Or whatever.
Like
They're not going to talk about good things that are happening.
No.
Why would they do that? They're already doing horribly.
Exactly. And so then, I guess the question that they were having was, what is the, who determines what is classified, declassified, whatever. And who determines that is the President of the United States. And every president determines what is classified, what it can be declassified, and what is considered to be sensitive materials. But yeah, so Peter Doocy talks about, it's short, but he talks about the piece that that the left is going crazy about, that made it look like it was a war plan, I guess you could say.
Let's show you what we have, and you can decide if this looks like a war plan. He texted the group at one point, at 2:10, more F-18s launch, second strike package. Then at 2:15, strike drones on target, all caps. This is when the first bombs will definitely drop, pending earlier trigger-based targets. It goes on to explain F-18 strikes, and then he says more to follow. He says they were currently clean on OPSEC. We know that the Pentagon has more detailed imaging and coordinates than that. And there is no imaging or satellite photos or coordinates or targets listed here specifically. And so it would seem that if you're going to fly F-18s and drones to take out Houthi guys, wherever it is that they're hiding out, the Pentagon has all of that information. So when they say there's no war plans, maybe they just mean that this text image did not include the full package of everything that they knew and everything that they could see and hear on the ground. But there is definitely some details, at least about timing, that is available.
If you're calling it not classified, and there's that time in there, the 14:15, that's when the strike is going to happen. Like they're saying is the war plan, but that's not considered a war plan even by the Atlantic. They know that now. That's not considered a war plan. There's no coordinates. There's no times. There's no times of when this is going to happen and what day. That's just a broad time. But yeah, I see them having to drag this out for a while. We'll be hearing about this for a little while.
I mean, just say that you made a mistake and move on.
And just move on.
Because I think that when you try to explain it away, then you give them more ammunition to just keep on going with it. Because it's a story. Yeah. Once you make it into, I think that's why Trump is just doing that. Yeah. Mistake, move on. You know what I mean? Yeah. But because you're trying to make it, make an excuse for something that was kind of sloppily done. Yeah. You know what I mean? Just say it.
In
general, when you make a mistake, just own up to it and then move on. What makes things worse is when you keep trying to make an excuse for something that really you don't need to make a story about. You could just say, we made a mistake. You're human beings. Human beings make mistakes. We have human beings that run in this country.
Yeah.
We don't have robots.
And so another mistake will happen, is the point.
Right.
And this
I mean, Hillary Clinton had classified.
And again, that wasn't an accident.
That wasn't an accident.
That was she
but,
wanted
so
that.
That lets you know that they're just using a small thing to sort of distract everyone. You know, and the Republicans, as far as the media, Republican media, they're talking too much about how bad the left is. I'm like, you don't have to do that. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah, the left's crappy. But don't make up stuff. Don't try to put a light on something that was a mistake.
I agree. Now, one more thing before we get done with this. This one of the, when they had to go to committee, obviously they had to go answer some questions get grilled about this whole situation. And this one, I think he's a senator, he was asking, this is where I think you lose credibility, because they really want to get Pete Hegseth out of there. They never wanted to confirm him in the first place. So they've been trying to get him out of there, you know, and it's just really hasn't been working. And this is like their one ditch like effort to make it happen. And this guy brings up Pete's past. He's a recovering alcoholic. And he brings us up, like in this hearing. I just think that this is where the left easily loses credibility when they do things like this. Because I feel like now we've start with a personal attack. Has nothing to do with these texts. Attack him on like the negligence or of the briefing and not having like a proper security of understanding who's in that chat. But attacking his personal life, that's when you kind of lose credibility to me.
The main person who was involved in this thread that a lot of people want to talk to is Secretary of Defense Hegseth. And a lot of questions were brought up regarding his drinking habits in his confirmation hearing. To your knowledge, do you know whether Pete Hegseth had been drinking before he leaked classified information?
I don't have any knowledge of Secretary Hegseth's personal habits.
Director Radcliffe, same question. Yes or no?
No, I'm going to answer that. I think that's an offensive line of questioning. The answer is no. I find it interesting that you want to... I'm going to answer. You asked me a question. Do you want an answer?
No, listen.
You don't want to focus on the good work that the CIA is doing, that the intelligence community...
Director, I reclaim my time. Director, I reclaim my time. Here, I have huge respect for the CIA, huge respect for our men and women in uniform. But this was a question that's on the top of minds of every American, right? He stood in front of a podium in Europe holding a drink. So of course, we want to know if his performance is compromised. If people were asking if the General Austin was compromised because of a heart issue,
was his performance compromised because of a successful strike?
Back. Mr. I bring my
You want to know? You want to talk about accepting responsibility? Do you think you should accept responsibility for a successful strike to make Americans safer? You want to focus on?
I reclaim my time. So here's the thing. This is serious. As somebody, we've been briefed in this committee about using Signal. One of the things they basically said, the most secure phone call, the least secure text messaging. And we know that your people are Russians, Chinese are on your phone.
Gentleman's time's expired. Gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Clark.
Yeah, so I don't have a problem with him grilling them. Actually, I don't have a problem with the grilling of the questions, because I think the American people do want to know. The majority of American people really want, more domestic stuff to get taken care of. I'm just saying they're really focused on that. They're not necessarily focused on this strike. But I understand the grilling. I don't understand the personal attack, though, on him in his past drinking issues.
Yeah, I mean,
it's been resolved.
Again,
that was a little much.
We had a president for 4 years who had dementia.
Good point.
No one cared about that.
Very good.
There was no answer. I still want answers to why we had a man who had dementia, and they knew about that, and he was our president for 4 years. Who was running the country?
That's a really good comparison there, because I didn't even think about that. I mean, I don't know why I didn't think about that. It's very obvious. a good comparison, because you're worried about this man drinking, which you know he's not. You're just trying to take him down. Yet we did have a president for I would say pretty much for all 4 years he was like that. It got declined obviously fast towards the end, but they still haven't given us answers to that situation. We don't know. Yeah. The left, if the Democrats want to keep at this to no end and not focus on anything else but this, then have at it. Go ahead and do that. But
believe me, the average American is not thinking about this.
They're really
this whole
not.
Situation.
They're really not.
They're just not.
They're really not.
I mean, I'm sorry to say, left and right. They're not. No one's thinking about this situation.
It's just that the left. It's just that the Democrats had something to sink their teeth into, and they created a vulnerability in the Trump administration with this one thing to them. But to the regular people, it's just like, I'm just like Trump. Like,
I mean, this man is talking a lot, but he's not saying anything.
Yeah.
Long-winded people who aren't getting to a point.
Emotional.
And, just long-winded people who aren't getting to a point. That whole conversation was like, well, you get to your point. What are you trying to say here? What are you trying to articulate here? You know what I mean?
He's trying to muster up the courage.
I know you're trying to get a mic drop, but my point in saying this is that no one is really thinking about this. Only people who do political videos and only people in the media. That's it. The regular person that's going to work, and believe me, is not thinking about this at all.
No,
they're just not. And that's why Trump moved on, because he knows that.
Yeah,
it's not. It's a mistake, but it's not a mistake that people are just, oh God, what about those text messages?
Yeah.
No one's waking up and thinking that. This is what's on the minds of every American. That's not true.
It's not a catastrophic mistake, but it is sloppy.
It's sloppy, but
it's sloppy.
Again, we had a president who had dementia when he ran for president and got progressively worse to the point where he couldn't walk up stages by himself. He couldn't talk without talking points.
How was he able to?
You know what I mean?
How was he able to communicate properly, as and efficiently with his Secretary of Defense? I mean, I'm just saying, like, how was he able to do that? I don't think he was able to do that.
To me, that I thought about all the time that Biden was in office is how is this man running the country? And then when you see the results of what happened to us in 4 years, you can see he wasn't.
Yeah, right.
And then his successor was to be a fake woman who got anointed as a candidate. Who had no message at all and was much more willing just to keep the borders open and not, those are things people talk about and think about. That's why Trump won.
Yeah.
But nobody in 4 years is going to talk about a text message.
They're not.
They're just not.
I know the Democrats want. They're going to keep this up because
I'm not saying you shouldn't talk about it. I'm just saying that.
I'm not saying. I'm actually going a step further. You should investigate it.
Right.
I'd agree with that. I'm not disagreeing with that part of it.
But the Republicans find this a success. That this is their biggest problem. This is what the liberals think is the biggest problem right now. Is an unclassified is like an unclassified message.
Yeah.
And then the outcome was good.
Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, this is kind of squashed to me until something else comes out about this. It's just like, let's move on. All right, you guys, but please let us know what you think about all of this. If you have any more information on this, let us know, because you guys, we do the video the week after, so maybe new things came up we didn't know about. Let us know. Put it in the comment box, and that's it. We'll see you guys in the next video.